Some cold, hard truths about what the late Queen and Prince Philip really thought of Meghan Markle, and also some surprising information about the child known as Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. Hello, friends. Welcome to the King YouTube channel. Thanks to Ingrid Seward, folks, we've got some new information now about what the late Prince Philip and the late Queen really thought of Meghan Markle. Now, to hear Meghan and Harry tell it, of course, she and the late Queen were best friends. Meghan had even claimed that she and the Queen would have these phone calls together and talk about, well, I still don't know what exactly. We never really believed these claims. We always suspected that the late Queen and Prince Philip knew exactly what type of person Meghan was, and I'm sure they didn't really want her to join the family. But it seems like they didn't really have any choice because Harry is such a petulant brat. He was going to pitch a fit like a little baby in the floor if they didn't let him marry Meghan. So fine, they said, go ahead and make the biggest mistake of your life, and that's exactly what he's done. And now, according to Ingrid Seward, writing for the Mail Online, the late Queen actually did approve of Meghan Markle in the very beginning. Not only did she like her, she writes, she had high hopes for what the American actress might be able to achieve with Harry for the youth of the Commonwealth. Now, this information is not really revelatory. This is something we've known for a long time. This is something that many Brits and people all around the world felt. People were excited about Meghan joining the royal family because people thought that Meghan was young, she offered something fresh. She and Harry, especially since Meghan is biracial, people were hoping that she and Harry would be able to connect with members of the Commonwealth that maybe people like William and Catherine were not able to connect with. In the beginning, it also seemed like younger people were bigger fans of Harry and Meghan. They saw something in them that they could relate to that maybe they didn't see in William and Catherine. Of course, that was before Meghan started to show who she really was. And it sounds like Prince Philip figured out what was going on with Meghan before the Queen did. According to Ingrid Seward, one of the very few wary of succumbing to her charm offensive, however, was Prince Philip. While the Queen continued to champion Harry's new love, he warned his wife to be cautious. It was uncanny, he told her, how much Meghan reminded him of the Duchess of Windsor. And this is a comparison that we have made so many times. I mean, many people online call Meghan Walmart Wallis because that basically is what she is. So Ingrid Stewart goes on to write, he wasn't simply referring to the fact that both were pencil slim, dark haired, and glamorous American divorcees. There was a wealth of subtext in his barbed remark. Prince Philip was not just trying to insult Meghan, he was simply stating what he saw. And apparently, it wasn't all about looks, and it wasn't all down to the fact that they were Americans and they were divorcees. There was a lot more to it. Ingrid Seward writes, when she was just 10, Princess Elizabeth's beloved father had suddenly become king after Edward VIII, the later the Duke of Windsor, abdicated for the sake of marrying Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. This caused a permanent rift in the royal family. The new King George VI refused to receive her and denied her the appellation of Her Royal Highness. For her part, the American Duchess openly mocked the Queen, later Queen Mother, as the fat Scotch cook. Well, now that we have that information, I think it's pretty clear why Prince Philip thought that Meghan was so much like the Duchess of Windsor. Meghan, for all her talk about elevating communities and inspiring girls, Meghan is a mean person. She's simply not nice. She insults people about things they can't help. She bullies people. She bullied her staff to tears. I mean, just think about what she did to that poor girl when she was in college at Northwestern. She was some sorority sister and Meghan glued her eyelids shut as some type of prank. Meghan Markle is not a kind person. Meghan, like Wallis, for some strange reason, has this attitude like she is somehow better than members of the royal family. I mean, it does sound like there are some uncanny resemblances between Meghan and the Duchess of Windsor, and I believe that one thing these women have in common is that Meghan Markle is, and the Duchess of Windsor was, a narcissist. Narcissism has a few different forms, but there are many characteristics that all narcissists have. Characteristic is this lack of respect for other people and this belief that they are so far above everybody else. Later on, according to Ingrid Seward, the Queen Mother blamed the couple for her husband's early death, caused, she felt, by the stress of taking on the role of king, for which he had been both unprepared and temperamentally unsuited. Never forgave the Duchess, whom she cast as a wicked enchantress. Honestly, folks, reading that, it gives me chills just how much we can see that history truly has repeated itself. Wicked enchantress, yeah, check. Putting so much stress on a monarch that they pass away early, again, check. I will always believe that what Harry and Meghan did to the late Queen in the last few months of her life certainly hastened her demise. Certainly did not deserve any of the abuse that Harry and Meghan inflicted upon her, especially considering the fact that Harry was her own grandson. And just like Meghan took Harry away from his royal duties, that's exactly what Wallis did to Edward. According to Ingrid, from the very beginning of the relationship between Edward and Wallis, now it wasn't a fair back then, too, because he was still married. He was so head over heels infatuated with her that soon enough he started to neglect his royal duties. And once, when he asked Wallis to light a cigarette for him, she replied, quote, "Only if you ask properly," and he had to get down on his knees and beg like a dog so that she would light a cigarette for him. Only Harry had paid attention in history class and actually cared about the history of his own family, maybe he wouldn't have ended up in this situation with Meghan, because it sounds like exactly the same thing we're seeing with those two. Clearly, Meghan has all the control in that relationship. When she says jump, Harry asks how high. He is so desperate to keep her happy, he will do absolutely anything, including betraying his own family. Also sounds like that eventually the late Queen came to agree with Prince Philip on Meghan Markle. Ingrid writes, as one who had lived through this tumultuous period of royal history and been directly affected by it, Queen Elizabeth II was perfectly aware what Philip meant when he drew parallels between Meghan and Wallis. Indeed, much later, she would remark in her clipped way that perhaps Harry had been too in love with the American actress. I would also argue the late Queen was not talking about true love. She saw that what existed between Harry and Meghan was all based on sexual chemistry. Meghan was willing to do things for Harry in the bedroom that nobody else had ever been willing to do. Harry also was so obsessed with trying to one up his brother that he thought Meghan was so hot, hotter than Catherine, and he believed that somehow William was going to be jealous of Harry's relationship with Meghan Markle, this divorced American actress. According to Ingrid Seward, Prince Philip never changed his opinion on Meghan whatsoever, and apparently once he saw the similarity between Meghan and Wallis, he referred to her only as DOW, short for the Duchess of Windsor. So that pretty much tells us exactly what he thought of her. Now, it sounds like the late Queen tried to be more optimistic about Meghan, and it sounds like she also tried to always refrain from talking bad about people. Ingrid Seward writes, Queen Elizabeth II never voiced her true opinion about Harry's wife except to her very closest confidants, such as Lady Elizabeth Anson, or Liza as she was known to her friends. Cousin of the Queen, she used to speak on the telephone to the monarch on a daily basis. Ingrid Seward, of course, spoke with Lady Elizabeth, and apparently Lady Elizabeth told her that the Queen had made only one comment to her about Meghan and Harry's wedding. She said that Meghan's Givenchy wedding gown was, quote, too white, which of course it was. We've heard those rumors. The Queen really wanted Meghan to choose a different color. She didn't think it was appropriate for Meghan, as an at least once divorced, more likely twice divorced woman, to be wearing bright white on her wedding day. And it's not appropriate. She was no virgin. I mean, come on. It sounds like the Queen was also not comfortable with Charles stepping in for Meghan's own father at the wedding and walking her down the aisle. Well, of course not, especially considering the reason that happened. Knowing what we know now, it looks like Meghan Markle's father taking photographs for the tabloids was a setup by Meghan herself. She was ashamed of her father's appearance. She was ashamed that she didn't come from this fancy background like Harry, and she didn't want her father to be at her wedding. Instead, she invited a bunch of celebrity A-listers she didn't even know. The Queen was somebody who truly believed in family values. She believed in the importance of honoring one's family, so I understand why that would have rubbed her the wrong way. According to Ingrid, the Queen and Prince Philip also had some problems with the service itself. She writes, like many others in the congregation, she was startled by the impassioned outpourings of the American Archbishop Michael Curry, who spoke for more than 14 minutes. Both the Queen and Prince Philip, who hate long sermons, were desperate for him to finish. They must also have been aware that some of those around them were stifling their laughter. And now that to me is still such a weird thing they did. Meghan Markle did not grow up in that kind of church. I mean, come on. This was obviously Meghan trying to remind everybody that she is part black, and so everybody should be very careful about what they say around Meghan Markle because she's had to face so many instances of racism in her life. Yeah, right. This is the same woman who didn't even admit to being biracial until, well, she got together with Harry and decided she could use it to her advantage. And yeah, the sermon from Michael Curry was completely inappropriate. As Ingrid Seward recounts, he said that he had felt the presence of the slaves from whom he was descended in the chapel, which he felt to be a sign of hope, even though he admitted that he didn't know either Harry or Meghan. So again, why was he even there? The Lake Queen was also not a fan of the changes that she saw in Harry after he got together with Meghan. According to Lady Elizabeth, Ingrid Seward writes, the Queen was dismayed by Harry's high handed attitude both before and after the wedding, and their relationship was, quote, quite badly damaged by it all. It was even more damaged when Harry decided to give up being a working royal and leave the country, a decision, said Lady Elizabeth, that the Queen never truly understood. Then came the couple's infamous interview with Oprah Winfrey, in which Harry said his father was trapped and heavily implied that the royal family were racist. Reportedly, even though the late queen did love her grandson, Prince Harry, she still was incredibly upset by this attitude, and she was not able to condone the way that he was talking about the institution of the monarchy that she had spent her entire life trying to preserve. I mean, what a slap in the face to his own grandmother. And according to Ingrid Seward, at some point in time, the Queen just gave up altogether on Harry. She decided that if he was only going to listen to Meghan, well, fine. She wasn't going to try to give advice anymore. She was just going to try to distance herself from all the drama. Sure, it continued to bother her. I'm sure she continued to feel pain about this situation because this is her own family. Also really liked reading what Ingrid Seward had to write about Harry's victim mentality. She writes, quote, choosing to be seen as a victim, he has tried to wreak vengeance on his family and the press for all the slights he believes he suffered, and much of his ire has been directed at his elder brother. The roots lie in childhood. For a long time, Princess Diana called Harry her little baby. For his part, he didn't want to share his mother with William, who was 2 years his senior. So that's probably where Harry's obsession with competing with William comes from, and this is an obsession he clearly has held on to all the way into adulthood. It's bizarre. I think it's very normal for siblings to be competitive with each other, but typically when people grow up and become adults, become mature, they understand that, well, this kind of competition isn't healthy, that really they are different people, and it's better to just focus on one's own life. But Harry has never reached that point. Sounds like that when he was a child, people really didn't know how to handle Harry, so they just let him get away with everything. Ingrid says that the upshot seems to be an unwillingness to take responsibility for his own actions and a tendency to blame others when things don't work out the way he wants. He certainly always knew where he stood in the royal pecking order. At the age of 9, he turned to his brother and declared, you're going to be king. It doesn't matter what I do. And see, this license to do basically whatever he wanted to do is something that Harry never gave up. Even to this day, he believes he's untouchable. He believes that he has the freedom to live his life however he wants, to screw over whoever he wants to screw over, to engage in illegal activity like taking a bunch of drugs, and he's never going to have to face any consequences for his behavior. Well, so far, it looks like Harry's right. He really hasn't faced any consequences. And that's why we keep on hearing these calls from the public to have Harry's titles removed, to have him removed from the line of succession. It's incredibly frustrating for people to watch Harry do all this stuff, to betray his family, to be a traitor to his country, and to face no repercussions. According to what Ingrid Seward has to say, though, this narrative that Harry never had a close relationship with Charles, that Charles didn't really care about him, is absolutely false. She writes that Harry and Charles actually developed a pretty close relationship. He and Charles were much closer than William and Charles were when they were boys. She writes, father and son also spent many happy hours together when Harry was learning about nature and plants. Plants have feelings too, Charles explained to him, describing how he talked to his plants to encourage their growth. So maybe Charles didn't give a lot of hugs, but his way of showing his love for his sons was by teaching them about the things that were important to him, by sharing his hobbies and his passions with them. When Harry talks about how he missed going on bike rides with his father when he was a boy, he is being disingenuous. So this book by Ingrid Seward is set to be published by Simon & Schuster on February 15th. The name of the book is My Mother and I. Personally, I cannot wait. I haven't decided yet if I've got the time to read the book or if I just need to listen to the audiobook, but it sounds like there was going to be a lot of interesting information about the royal family. Ingrid Seward knows her stuff. She is a very reliable source, so I'm excited to see what all kinds of information this book contains. Okay, folks, and now on to a different story that I've got to share with you all. So, Earlier today, I was browsing Reddit and I came across an absolutely shocking post, but it sounds like it actually is verifiable. It sounds like this is true. So, user Built the Herd apparently lives in California, and California residents do have the right to request birth certificates. It's a matter of public record. This is something I knew, but I didn't know how it would apply in the case of Harry and Meghan's invisible children. Well, this user was able to get a copy of Lilibet's birth certificate, and we can have a look at it right here. If we zoom in, we can clearly see this is a birth certificate for a baby named first name Lilibet, middle name Diana, last name Mountbatten Windsor, born in Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, California. Father is the Duke of Sussex, is listed as the first name, and the last name His Royal Highness. The date of birth matches to 9/15 of 84. Mother's name is Rachel Meghan Markle. Again, the birth date matches August 4th of 1981. Now, this appears to be completely legitimate. I have seen these kinds of state records, and it's got the seal, it's got everything. So interestingly enough, it sounds like Invisibet is real. However, it's important to note that Lilibet could still have been born from a surrogate. According to this user, the surrogate's name usually does not appear on the birth certificate. So this still means that most likely Lilibet has no business being listed in the line of succession. Now, of course, some users are claiming that the document has to be fake, but other people are saying absolutely not. There are even some lawyers in the comment section of this post saying, no, it's absolutely a real document. But I think that we need to remember that this does not mean that Meghan Markle is biologically Lilibet's mother. And for Lilibet to be listed in the line of succession, Meghan Markle would have to be her biological mother. But not only that, Markle would have had to have actually given birth to her. Lilibet would have to have been born of the body of Meghan, and I don't believe that's the case. If you ask me, there are just too many strange things surrounding Lilibet's existence. There is something weird going on here. Something stinks. So first of all, what about the photos we have seen of Lilibet? According to the photos we've seen, the girl never ages. I mean, we basically are being led to believe that she's the same size as she was a year ago. Problem, of course, is there are so many discrepancies surrounding Lilibet's birth. We have not been able to hear from any doctors who witnessed Meghan giving birth to this child. And the whole thing is so shrouded in mystery that, of course, the logical conclusion is that Harry and Meghan have something to hide. To be fair, this document also does not tell us who this child, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, is living with now. There is no indication that she's actually living in Harry and Meghan's home in Montecito. I think she could easily be living with her real birth mother, the surrogate mother. So I think for now, I've decided I'm going to accept that Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor is a real person. She's a real child. But what I'm not going to accept is that Meghan Markle is her biological mother. And what I'm not going to accept is that she has a right to hold a princess title and a right to be named in the line of succession. Now, if we get real proof that Harry and Meghan really are living with these two children, that they are taking care of them, we see DNA evidence that Harry and Meghan truly are the biological parents of both Archie and Lilibet. And on top of that, if we can hear reports from doctors who witnessed Meghan Markle give birth to Lilibet, then I'll take back everything I ever said about her not being real, and I will admit that I was wrong. But folks, I don't think we're ever going to see that happen. And you, what do you think about these new revelations in Ingrid Seward's book? And what do you think about this birth certificate showing that Invisibet is a real child? Do you believe the birth certificate is real or do you think it's fake? And what do you think it means for the future of Harry and Meghan's invisible children? Do you think we're going to start seeing them more often? Or do you believe, like I believe, that they came from surrogates in the first place? Let me know your opinion below in the comments section. I can't wait to read what all you have to say. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to like and share it with any of your friends and family who would appreciate it too. And if you've not gotten around to it yet, please don't forget to click that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single update. From the King YouTube channel, thank you so much for tuning in. You all have a wonderful day, and I'll be back to see you in the next videos.